Okay, gang. As you know, I'm doing this mini tub install from Detroit Speed on the 68 Camaro, and I didn't really plan on doing a video on the driver's side, but you know, this side went well, and as you've seen in the other videos, I'm sure. But what I wanted to show you is, as I'm cutting away the material here to make room for the driver's side mini tub, there's a bit of a difference in the shape of things. And part of that is this shock mount. And I'll drop the card down in a minute and show you, but the cut line that you're gonna make, you know, it's supposed to be 2 3/4 from the edge of the wheelhouse on the inside. That line will go through that shock mount. On the other side, and I have the piece here, when I cut it, it went right next to the shock mount. So that makes it a little more challenging for somebody to fix or modify, because you're gonna have to remove the bulk of that metal that creates the shock mount. And let me lower this down and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so the car's down now, and you can see where I've already started cutting with the plasma cutter, and that's again the 2 3/4 inch line that they were talking about. And then there, hope you can see that, is where it cuts into, or will cut off part of that shock mount. So just kind of wanted to give you a heads up on that, and I'll cut that all off and have to build something there maybe. I don't know how that block is attached, but as I progress I'll show you what I do to fix that. Well, the plate for the shock mount was no problem. Once I cut into it, it separated and came right off. I really just kind of wanted to show you some stuff going on with this driver's side. This side has been a bit more of a challenge than the passenger side, and a lot of that has to do with the way this configuration is for this, like the bump stop here, and the way the body is shaped in this area. And the problem is, when I put the new panel in, that it keeps hitting things, and you can see I got a mark there, and even this inner piece here I've trimmed off, and I don't, you know, it's hard to guess or judge how far you want to cut into something, because you know, you're on this plane that runs back and forth, and if you cut too far, then you're going to end up building more material back into it. So I've been kind of, you know, as I say, whittling, and there's all these little pieces, strips after strips, that I've been cutting off. And so it's just a little bit more challenging on this driver's side. And there you can see some marks there. That's where I've, you know, been trying to indicate to myself what I have to remove. I know this is kind of hard to see, but I don't know if that works out well or not. But this is in the plane, and this up here, when I put the panel in, I could get it in, but it left a gap at the top. Left a gap up here where it mated. So the only way you're going to close that gap is to rotate the bottom away, and that's where these pieces are getting in my way. So I fired up the old plasma cutter again, and I'm going to do some more trimming and see if I can't get this thing to fit right. Okay, I think I finally got enough of the excess metal out of the way, and there's the alignment now, and I'm much happier with that. I also was able to get it, you can see the clamp up there. There's a clamp holding the top flange together. And now I'll go back and make the plates like I did on the other side, get those welded in place, and get my spot weld holes drilled in the flange and various other places, and get this side done. Well, as I was saying earlier, this was a bit more challenging on this side just because of the configuration here. I've made this plate, welded it all in, and I made this plate and brought it around the curve in the back, and then I made another plate up here to fill in that piece. Just a little more work. I'm happy with it. I think it looks pretty good. You can see all the grinding dust on the floor, plenty of that. I have the holes prepped for the other tub, and now I'll coat that with some weld through primer, get that up in place and get it welded in. And then I'll have a few little things to patch up. I've got a little piece to make down here to fill in that gap. That's easy enough. And once I get that in, I'll show you how that looks. Well, that's been a busy couple of days trying to get this driver's side finished, and it's now in place. Looks pretty good. Still got some, you know, welds to finish grinding. I did make that little patch as I was talking about earlier. It's in place. Filled that in. Plenty of grinding dust. And I will say this: the driver's side was a bit more of a challenge to get it to fit in, just because, like I said, the way this was all built different than the other side. That said, I wanted to show you one more thing, and that is the bracket that mounts the hinge bracket to the mini tub. And when you fit this in afterwards, and you can see where the old welds were. And what I did is I fit it, slid it up behind there. I drew a line where I knew that the cut line was going to be, and then I took a Sharpie and just made marks inside of the old weld holes. And also, I had to reshape this flange a little bit, and the forward flange. And this one, I had to do a little something different. And that was, I made a relief cut right here so that I could reposition this flange. Allowed me to bend it up and out of the way a little bit so it fit better. And then what I'll do is I'll bare the metal there and weld that shut, and it'll be just as good as it was before. Now I'm going to finish cutting this off, and again I'll bare this metal where these welds are going to go, and I'll clean up the bottom where the rust is, treat that with some weld through primer, and weld that in place. And that'll take care of the trunk area, much like the other side has already been done. The only other thing I'll have left to do is up there weld in that little seat bracket, and I'll have to trim it down like I did on that side. So yeah, the driver's side was a bit more of a challenge. I think it turned out pretty good. And the only other thing I'll do is make a little bit more of a filler right here, because that's a little bigger than it needs to be, and I'll custom make a piece of metal to fill that, weld that in, and then when the seam sealer gets on top, it'll be just fine. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, and the next video on this car will be pulling out the original firewall and putting in a smooth firewall.